Hi, welcome to Haven. This is a podcast that's a safe space for curiosity and conversation. I'm your host, Haven, and today I'm curious about sharing the mental load. Sharing the mental load. Let's paint the picture. Have you been asked, hey, where do we keep the birthday candles in the house? Or when's the last time that your child went to the dentist? And of course you know those things. Like you're the walking, living, breathing database for your family. If your partner was asked those things, would they know the answer? There is something. So I did a clip on social media where I was just briefly talking about the invisible mental load. Typically women, I actually said females in there. I got a lot of comments being like, females, we're the human species, call us women. So now I'm like very conscious. Women, we carry this where it's typically for the default parent where you know where everything is, you know when they need their doctor's appointments, what recital is coming up. If a child is sick, you're the one to rearrange your life to make it happen. You're coordinating babysitters. You're buying the new size shoes because they're almost out of this one and you want to get an extra size so they have more room. And you read the studies on Crocs and they're not good for toes, so we're not doing those next time. And like just all of the extra weight of what the mental load is. And it went viral. It got like 1 million views. And so what I realized is there's something here. It's really, really resonating of carrying the mental load and the weight of the household. But also in the clip, I had my husband there and he was saying like, can I be savage? Like that's just responsibility. And if you're not sharing responsibility, that's not fair. And he got a lot of claps from women in the comments on that one of like, yeah, wait, it is just responsibility. But there was another piece too where I wonder, why do men abdicate that? Like I've even known some dads who are like, well, I would help. Just give me a list and I'll do anything on the list. And their partners, us women, we're like, that's part of it. I don't want to have to make a list. That's one more thing for me to have to do. Why don't you know it? And so I just thought there's a lot to unearth here. Like, why don't men know it? Why do we know it? Why do we come into this partnership and all of a sudden choose to have kids? And also, is there a mental load pre-kids? What does that look like to even share that? And why is it intensified and primarily put on women post-kids? And so my initial insight was I want to bring in a dad who maybe doesn't understand it or doesn't carry their weight, like just kind of a clueless dad, which is actually, I know there's a lot out there. I ran into the issue where I realized it was two problems. One, I don't know many clueless dads, which is pretty cool. Live in LA. Maybe it's our generation. Maybe it's the involved friendships we have. Like that's awesome. It's a good problem. Or the very few I knew, I didn't want to hurt their wives' feelings by asking them. I felt like that's maybe just like some salt in the wound of, hey, you know how you don't step up? Like you want to come talk about it on a podcast? Like that sucks. Even if I worded it of like, hey, maybe we can give some insights and make them better. It's just a crummy conversation. I don't want to tell them like, hey, I've noticed that your partner doesn't, carry this weight and it must be exhausting. Like I didn't want to risk a friendship and do that. Then I was also like, I got some DMs of angry dads being like, well, we have our own mental load and it's the finances and it's making sure, all this other stuff is taken care of. Why don't we talk about that? So I was like, ooh, an antagonistic dad. That would be a good one to have on here. But again, they don't live near me. I would have to have them as virtual guests. So maybe I'll read some of their DMs and we can talk about it. But the third one, I was like, okay, I can definitely have an involved dad who's sharing the mental load. And there's a lot of them in LA, which is a great thing. But the one to me, the cream of the crop that rises to the top of like when I'm picturing who's an involved dad, who's sharing their weight, who's not waiting for a list, who's caring. And it was just like the most obvious is my friend Nick. You've heard his wife on here before. I had Lauren when she was on the episode with Nia and I. We were talking about, are we going to share our kids' faces online? And what I love about Lauren and Nick is one, they have twins. Their kids are 3.5 years old. They're around Echo's age. And anytime I'm around Lauren, like she's the friend where I'm like, can you adopt me? Like Lauren is the one where I'm like, any holiday, it's really special. She's doing half birthday cakes for her twins. If she comes over for our book club, it's always with a sweet treat. She's always remembering special things for me. Like Lauren is just that mom. You know what I'm saying? So you would probably think, oh, well, Lauren is covering all the house. Like she's got it all. But no, Lauren also has an amazingly involved husband, where the way that I can describe this best is one of the birthday parties for the twins. One, she made it unique themes for both of them that went in tandem. It was like Olive's garden and everything of like planting, and then it was Cypress's construction. So of course she had like the pudding that looked like mud with Oreos on top and gummy worms and all this stuff. But showing up at the party, Nick greeted me and he was the one showing me around. And for the parents, he was making grilled cheese and tomato soup. And he knows about all of his kids' birthdays and milestones and is sharing everything. So they're kind of that couple where I'm like, you guys are two involved parents utilizing your strengths, leaning into them, and sharing the mental load. So this is probably the longest setup I've done for a guest. He's just sitting here on the couch being like, am I supposed to talk or not? So please welcome an involved dad, Nick.
Hello. That bar that you just set for whatever I'm about to say. That was very, very nice. I'm happy to be here. And I'm also happy that I'm not the one who wasn't carrying the load well that you've invited onto the podcast. That makes me feel good.
It happens. And I get it. But maybe we start there, Nick. Like, why are some dads like clueless? Like, is it something where like growing up, like you're not brought into those conversations or you're not taught them? Like, why is it more often than not than a dad has the ability to be clueless where necessarily a mom like either doesn't or she just gets it quicker? What is that?
I don't know the answer to that. I mean, for me, it's a lot less about my upbringing and a lot more about what kind of father do I want to be and what kind of partner do I want to be? Mm-hmm. Also, if you would have asked Lauren at the beginning of when we had children, if I was carrying the mental load well then compared to today, she probably would have two separate answers. So for me, it was a bit of a journey I started out as one of those dads who wasn't intentionally not carrying the mental load well, and I had to learn how to do it. And I still, that's why I love your introduction. It's very humbling. Mm-hmm. I don't feel like I'm the cream of the crop. I feel like I'm trying to do the best I can to be a great partner and live up to, being a great dad for my kids and for my wife.
Early on, like what's a way that you feel like, a dad 3.5 years into parenting, like rookie mistake. I should or should not have done that living it, you maybe didn't notice.
Yeah. I mean, you alluded to this a little bit before, but like if your wife's going to do something, your partner's going to do something, you're with the kids. If you have to ask her basic questions, like what should I feed them? What time do they go to bed? Those should be red flags for you, not red flags that your partner's bringing up for you, but red flags that in your mind that you go, okay, I need to understand better the load of taking care of these kids, right? Because I mean, we have ad hoc things that come up where Lauren needs to go somewhere or I need to go somewhere, and we trust each other inherently that we can take care of our children. And we also we don't today carry the load of, okay, I have to coach them up. And Lauren has said that to me recently. She doesn't carry that load for me. If she is doing something to prepare me for her being gone, it's to help. It's not because she doesn't think I'm capable. It's because she understands it's a heavier burden when both parents aren't around. So she wants to contribute.
That's interesting. Because I saw someone, I was at a conference last month and they came up and they're like, I love like the podcast. I really enjoy it. And it was right when I had posted the mental load thing. I was like, oh, this one's picking up and it's interesting. And not like 5 or 10 minutes later on the conversation, she's like, oh yeah, this is like my husband's like first time with the kids. Like he doesn't even know like what their teacher's name is. He doesn't know like what time to pick them up. She's like, I had to do it. But then her take was, she goes, but I see that as like, well, she was a working mom. So I found that interesting. But she was like, he makes a lot more money than me. And like, this is my contribution of knowing all of this. And like, what's your take on that? Of like, if maybe, can you share the mental load if your partner is a stay-at-home partner? Or like, how do you do that when someone is seeing it of like, oh, this is my wheelhouse?
Yeah. I mean, so we actually have a system that we've adopted. We didn't create it, but we have a system we use called Fair Play. It's really popular. I can't remember the name of the creator, but it's essentially a series of cards that represents a portion of the mental load of having a family with or without kids, typically with kids. And it's things like, you own the medical card, you own the finance card, you own the childcare card. And it's a way to distribute that load evenly and clearly with your partner, where you can say, I know what I own and I know what my responsibilities are. So based on, to your question, who may work more than the other, those cards may be distributed differently, but it doesn't mean that one person should carry more of the load. It may mean they carry more of a card or a set of cards, but that inherently should mean the other partner is picking up the slack somewhere else. So to me, it doesn't matter if one's working, both are working, one has a more demanding job, the other one doesn't. Maybe that distributes childcare, but it shouldn't change the balance of the load.
That's really cool. I've never heard of those cards.
Lauren would love to share them with you. There's a very advanced way to go all the way into it. We use it as a guiding light. So like one of our jokes is I hold the clean the kitchen card. So even if she's cooking, typically I'm the one responsible for it. And I consistently have to tell her, let me own my card, because she's just used to cleaning up after herself, which is okay. But sometimes that means she's not spending time with the kids or doing things for herself or working or whatever else she may need to do. And I know that I hold the responsibility for that. It sounds like a small thing, but like extrapolate that to medical appointments. If she doesn't feel like she can trust me as the card holder of making those medical appointments, that's part of her mental load. She's not able to focus on other things. She's not able to focus on the cards she may own. It's a small thing, but if you hold yourself to, this is what I do, inclusive of childcare, it really helps the other partner and it builds trust.
I think that's really cool too, because also you're able to like play to your strengths. Like I think of even as you're talking, like Aaron and I, like the way that we would distribute the mental load is like he is in charge of groceries. Like he'll either order them to be delivered and like know when we're low and what needs to be set. Or even if I need some time alone, he'll take the kids out. And it's also like a little peace of mind for me. And so he's in charge of groceries because one, he loves cooking. He values food. He enjoys like the adventure of that. But one of my strengths is scheduling childcare, because it feels like at least this stage of preschoolers, it's childcare roulette. Like they're in preschool 3 days a week. We need a nanny for other 2 days, babysitting, overnight trips where I own, like the kids have a little shared calendar and then I have a calendar. And so I'm like, hey, you have a trip coming up. It's up to him to tell me when he's traveling so I can adjust. But I'm like, hey, I'm going to book this for every time I'm out of town, every time you're out of town. Like we've got this, and I will review it with you. But maybe there's also that piece of you own the card, but if you were in a debilitating health thing, like she knows how to put things away, or like if something happened to her, like you know how to book the medical appointments. I feel like also sometimes it's so much owning that the other person has no idea how to do what the other role is. So how often do you then be like, well, this is my card, but it's also helpful for you to know like what's happening? So it's like the right hand's telling the left hand. How does that work with Fair Play?
Yeah. So there's an easy answer. So abdicating the card, so letting somebody else own the card, doesn't mean that you're not able to understand what's necessary to perform that card. So for the exact reason you said, like somebody has a medical emergency, one partner's incapacitated, they have a business trip for a week, we should be able to share each other's load the entire time, right? So if one of those situations come up, she obviously can clean the kitchen. She knows how to make an appointment. She knows how to pay our bills. She can do those things, but defining who's owning them in the absence of one of those, unexpected, scheduling differences, we have to be able to know how to do it. So that was something early on that we got in fights about a lot, because it was, we both inherently knew, it was before we used Fair Play, but we both inherently knew, okay, Lauren's going to take care of the kids more during the business day than I am, because my work hours dictate normal business days. Hers are a little different. So we knew she would take that, but she would coach herself up on how to take care of them during that time in the day. And I didn't take the time to figure that stuff out. So when there were times when she was out of town or had an event or whatever, and I was taking care of them, I was comfortable taking care of them, but I didn't know when their teeth needed to be brushed. I didn't know when they, like, you know what I mean? Like all these little tiny things that she did with them, I did not know yet.
Yeah.
So I think what I learned is, and Fair Play talks about this too, what I learned is I should, to your point, know how to own every card in our household. But the consistent who typically owns it is different than who has to do it that specific day. You know, I should be able to.
Okay, so I feel like that really helps with like big bucket things. But when I make this note of like, what is the mental load? I'm going to read off some examples, and I'm like, I don't know if those would fit on cards. Like a mental load to me is like remembering what jackets the kids need based on the forecast, tracking nutrition and being the only one wondering, have they had enough protein today? Is the cake ordered for the birthday? What's the Easter bunny bringing them this year? It's not just laundry. It's like, what is the specific outfit they need for this specific activity coming up? Managing the emotional load of the kids, of teaching them about feelings, teaching them about responses and discipline. And then it's also noticing a child's pattern, like what they're eating, what they're wearing, what they're feeling, how they're responding to their friends. Like, what about all of those seemingly intangible, invisible pieces that I feel like a mom is more leaning towards? Like, how can a dad learn to think that way?
Yeah. So the answer for me is communication with your partner. So like this is one of the reasons you and Lauren are great friends. You both have those detailed minds. I don't have that. So for me, my priority is quality time with my kids, making sure they're safe and they get what they need. I do think about some of those other things, but it doesn't consume me in the way that it consumes people like you and Lauren. Not that that's right or wrong. So, but I am interested in those things. They just don't pop into my head first. So what we found is when she's thinking about those things, she brings them up to me and we have a discussion about it. It allows us to align as parents and also pulls me into watching them closer and paying attention to those things so that I'm ready and able to be a present partner the next time that situation comes up. So I think something this is something Lauren struggles with. I love you, babe. I'm not accusing you of anything.
What a preface.
Her first, yeah. So if something like that comes up where she's considered it and is frustrated that I haven't, her first thought is weaponized incompetence, or he just doesn't care, right? And for me, I'm trying to just be present with them. I just haven't thought of that yet. Doesn't mean it's not important to me. So if we have that moment of discussion and bring up a specific subject, you know, why it's important to like check the weather 2 and 3 days down and have things ready, like why that's important to her and I hadn't thought of it, it brings us together and allows us to agree, okay, we need to be considering this, right? Or like a certain type of snack makes one of our children's stomachs upset. You know, like she may see that. I may not know it. Therefore, I'm not thinking about it. Doesn't mean I don't care. It means we haven't aligned on it and I can't help if I don't know.
Totally. I think it is like very often vocalizing. And it's also a really fine line of like vocalizing it and then allowing the other person to be the parent that they are too. I feel like there is such a line of like, it can be almost like over like structured, over caring, over like, does this really, really matter? Is this something that just matters to me? Or is it like a dire, like a peanut allergy? Yeah, that one's going to be important.
Super important.
But like the differences of like, I don't know, certain jackets or, you know, going off of that example, or like it is something where it does also have to be like, hey, I want you to care and receive and listen. And then you are your own parent, like what decisions come up. But I feel like at least it's like validated that, okay, that's important to you. You know, I feel like there is such a line, like where sometimes I feel like we as women are like, it has to be done this way at this time, the way that I'm thinking about it and the way that they're used to. And sometimes that might even be a detriment to the kid in some ways of like, they only have it one way and they're not flexible.
Yeah. I mean, something that one of her communication techniques that I love that she's adopted over the last few years is instead of getting frustrated with me when she sees I'm not considering something, she will take that opportunity even when the kids are in the room and say, hey, usually when this happens, I've been doing this. So it's an education point of like, this is something that's important to me and how I handle it. It's not, she doesn't jump to, why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you considering this? There's an assumption of virtuous intent there. And an important point there is, guys or partners, like the assumption here is that you are trying and you are trying to be an equal partner. If you're not, that's a different problem, right?
See, that's a totally different conversation. We were talking about this in prep for the episode, and I shared that one time I was with this guy and like in a circle talking, and he was giving advice to someone who was about to get married. And this guy he had been married for a long time, and he was like, here's my advice to you, as like, whenever she gives you domestic stuff, just be terrible at it. He was like, if she wants you to iron, even better if it's her favorite shirt, just iron a hole in it and she'll never ask you to do it again. And then it reminds me of, there's that episode of The Office where it's about the microwave being cleaned.
Oh yeah.
And he's like, oh, I don't know how. And she's like, you don't know how to take a paper towel and wipe it down? He's like, oh no, you're just so much better at it than me. She's like, at wiping it with a paper towel. But the term is weaponized incompetence. Yeah. And there is the difference of someone who's intentionally sucking at something to abdicate responsibility versus someone who doesn't know, wants to, and just isn't in the headspace. But I do think there's a lot of men on the other side, and they call it, the phrase for the females is the married single mom. Like, I'm a married single mom. I'm doing all of it, even though I'm technically married. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I would put, to your first point, I would put apathetic behavior in the same box as weaponized incompetence, right? So you described like the all the way over of I'm intentionally acting like I don't know how to do it. Mm-hmm. But there's also this category of a lot of husbands that I think just assume their wife is going to take care of it, and they're not trying. Mm-hmm. They're not trying to seem incompetent, but they're not trying to help either. Mm-hmm. I would put both of those in the same category. And Lauren and I had a lot of discussions about this early on when I was trying to figure out how we were going to parent together. And a lot of her initial assumptions were that I was just going to fall into that category. And to my knowledge, the category of weaponized incompetent partner, right? And I had never given her an indication. I assumed she would be the primary parent. I assumed she would take on all the load. In fact, I was the opposite. I expected of myself that I would be an equal parent. Mm-hmm. But her assumption, for whatever reason, was that I wouldn't be. So that caused a lot of anger and issues because she wasn't willing to educate me because she didn't think that I cared. Wow. And she didn't want to share resources with me that were interesting to her around parenting and how we're running our family because she thought I didn't care, when that was the entirely the opposite, you know?
How did you figure out that was the issue?
We talked about it more. Like, to me, it's like, I want her to assume virtuous intent, right? So if she sees a gap or an issue or thinks I should care about something I may not be caring about, I want her to assume I'm trying, and assume I'm trying to be the best partner for her and the best father for our kids that I am trying to be, right? Because if she approaches me that way, we get to have a productive conversation about how do we want to do this thing better. Yeah. It's not a conversation about why aren't you here? Mm-hmm. So, and for her, again, her mind starts from why isn't he doing this, instead of, oh, this is an opportunity for us to figure it out together. And that's changed. I'm not saying she's changed, because I've also done like a lot more intentional, proactive work on trying to figure out how we want to parent a certain situation without waiting for her to tell me. You know, that's a way that I can fight from my side as well and make sure that we're aligned. But if she assumes virtuous intent in her partner, and the partner is trying, a lot less of the fighting happens. A lot less stress is there. It's much more, let's figure this out together as a team.
I think it's so much of like what you're talking about, the assumptions, but also expectations. Mm-hmm. And I wonder if that's why dads come in less prepared, as what they saw growing up was the mom doing everything. Like, maybe they saw like, oh, that's what happens. And the dad, like, this is his role. And so they don't even think, maybe, what do we want for our family? Or maybe she saw growing up of like, that's just what it is. Like, I feel like sometimes you also kind of have to come in and have this very frank conversation, ideally before kids, because after kids, it feels too late, of how do you see yourself being a parent? What does that look like in the day-to-day? There are responsibilities we maybe don't even know how to name right now, but how do we talk about it, and like what's involved in each stage? Each one's different. Like the episodes I did with Tess, we were talking about how postpartum, like, dads can pretty much do everything but breastfeed. Like, they can change diapers, they can swaddle, they can get you food, they can get you water. Like, they can even help change like your pads of like what you're adjusting in as like the mom right after. And it's saying like that kind of involvement is possible. They just don't know. Like, they would have to have a nurse show them how to swaddle. They are going to have to be educated of, hey, a mom's going to have like essentially a really long period after, and it's going to be hard to bend over, and she could use your help. Like, part of me thinks it goes all the way back to the communication of like, this is what I need help with. Like, what piece can you help before it drops?
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, assuming virtuous intent is something from one partner's perspective to the others, typically the mom, right, to the father. But I think there's also like, guys, we have to try and figure it out ourselves. Like, it doesn't mean don't work with your partner, but if I said this a little earlier, like if you're waiting for your wife to come to you and say, hey, here's what I've learned, I'm going to give you a debrief. And, you're giving her more mental load of being a teacher to you where she's already taught herself, right? So there's this pursuit of parental knowledge that you both have to share. I think one person's always going to be ahead of the other in that. Like Lauren's personality is just always going to be research, type A. She's going to know more about a subject she's interested in than I will initially. Doesn't mean I don't care about it. I'm just not diving into the books until I absolutely have to. But early on, she felt like she had to be my teacher because she ran down the research road earlier. And there was also the assumption that I wasn't trying as well. So breaking both of those things down and, assuming your partner is trying and then also helping to fill in the gaps, that really helps.
I think it's cool too, of especially like, even if you may be like the researcher and going ahead, I'm going to be the one. It's the same. It's my personality of like, when it's going to be solids, like, what are we going to do? Purees or baby-led weaning? Like when it's sleep, are we going to sleep train or co-sleep? When it's time to potty train, what method? Are we going to do a sticky chart? Or are we going to watch this? I usually find the one that I want to do because I enjoy that kind of thing. And then I say, hey, Aaron, will you watch these videos with me?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to say, hey, why don't you go and audit the best potty training course? Because I enjoy that part. But when it comes to like instilling how we're going to be on the same page when our kid is pottying, like I want to have the same language. Like even we watched the course together and it was like when they have an accident, your knee jerk is going to say, oh, it's okay. Like, it's okay. We'll clean it up. They're like, don't say it's okay because it's really not. You don't want them peeing on the floor. You want them peeing on the potty. And so it's both of us being like, we're aligned in where we're going as a parent. Doesn't mean that you have to go and do all the extra stuff. But when we land on something, let's get on the same page together.
Yeah. And you both have to be curious. Like you have to care about being a parent, which means you're going to be curious about how to be a better parent, right? Like we're at the point, Lauren and I, where we will send each other clips of TikToks or whatever else that are like about parenting things or ways to parent a specific situation. And our question to each other is usually like, what are your thoughts about this? It always starts a point of communication around one of those things that allows us to parent consistently and share the load for each other down the road.
And once you get past like even that, because for me, Aaron's very similar. Like he shares huge part of the mental load that I don't feel like there's this resentment. So then when he parents in a rogue choice, I'm actually game. Like even like, with our son, when we tried first to wean him from a passy and it was too soon, he like would open the fridge and put in a baby carrot and we're like, okay, it's not time. But then later I was on a work trip. It was like a couple months later, Aaron's like, hey, by the way, I'm going to wean Echo while you're gone. And like my knee jerk was like, oh, that's so sad. Like he's going to be, without his passy. But then part of me is like, hey, maybe it's a good thing I don't have to be around. It would hurt me. Like it's hard to watch him struggle, even though I know it's necessary. And so I was like, okay, great. Like Godspeed. But like that to me is like, he's an equal partner. He knows everything. He knows we have to stop this passy before the kid turns 3 for their mouth development. It is a goal. He may have gone on a left turn than I would have, but I'm also like, it makes it helpful when someone's sharing the mental load for then when they parent in their own personality, in their own way, you're not like, oh, that's not what the books say. That's not what we do. We're not doing that. It's, oh, okay, you're just going to put your own flair on that. And it doesn't feel like it's, oh, we're out of sync.
Yeah. And there's a positive and a negative way to react to situations like that too. Like you can choose to know that your way is right and get frustrated by the way your partner is parenting. Or to your point, you can choose to be curious about it and either talk about it then or another time. But it should be a pursuit of parenting well or a pursuit of managing the family burden well, not one person is right and the other should catch up.
And I almost want to backtrack a little bit because like I have one that's available, you're available, but there's a lot of dads that aren't. And I went to a recent reading of Dr. Becky Kennedy. She wrote Good Inside and she was promoting her new kids book, That's My Truck. And she said that someone came up to her and they were like, hey, I loved hearing my husband read this book because he doesn't want to read Good Inside. He doesn't really care about that stuff. It's like not his way of like how he wants to, it's just too foreign to him. They're like, but I heard him reading to our children, you're a good kid having a hard time. And she was like, that's the first time my kids have heard their dad say that. was from a children's book when he was reading it to them. She goes, it was really, really important. So I also want to go back. Okay, if maybe your partner isn't curious, maybe they are, disagreeing with how you're wanting to parent. Maybe they have no idea the mental load or they're even combative. Like, what are little things like that? It can be a book that you're like, can you just read this book to the kids at night? And it's kind of saying the things you want. Like, what are very achievable, almost elementary style things that someone can help offset some of the mental load if their partner isn't like, oh, I'm game to help. Like, what if they're listening? Like, it'd be nice to distribute the cards. Like, I'm just trying to get them to like, not say like, oh, you're a bad kid. Like what's that advice for those kind of people?
I think this goes back to your question about where does this come from? Where mothers and women tend to have a lot of this knowledge early on and tend to dive into it quicker than men do. I think that we don't have a great understanding as guys of what the mental load is of being a mother and a parent. And I think there's an easy assumption that it's just kind of childcare. And even if you want to be around for your kids as a dad, you don't understand the rest of the planning and everything else that went into great motherhood and great parenting. Mm-hmm. So I think if we're still assuming virtuous intent and we're not getting help from our husbands, like go to them and calmly talk to them about, hey, I don't think you understand. This is the entire body of work of what I'm doing to parent our kids. Mm-hmm. Like, it's so much more than you may think. Mm-hmm. And to me, we had a few of those conversations because even though I was trying, I still didn't understand how much was actually necessary, mm-hmm. especially because Lauren was the one primarily taking care of them during the business day. So mm-hmm. even though I was pouring time in the morning and in the evening and trying to take over outside of business hours, there was still a lot more she needed from me that she wasn't communicating. Mm-hmm. And I also wasn't trying to go into those areas because I didn't understand the full extent of the load. So mm-hmm. her telling me, here's all, like, she was kind of setting out our fair play cards for me mm-hmm. without us using that system. Mm-hmm. So that's the first piece, I think, mm-hmm. is like, try to communicate the whole body of work and mm-hmm. communicate the size of the burden. Mm-hmm. If that doesn't work, I struggle with the advice past that point. Because to mm-hmm. me, if you're doing that in a calm way, communicating it in a calm way, and then still like respectfully saying, hey, I need your help in these areas. Like, mm-hmm. where do you think you can contribute? I need your help. Mm-hmm. And you still don't have an active partner. I think that's a different problem. Mm-hmm. I think that's a partner that's not trying to help you and not trying to share the burden. Mm-hmm. So they may understand it and still not try. That's harder for me to answer. It
is a different discussion. You're right. It does go much bigger. And part of me almost wonders if, one, okay, she's explaining it and giving words to it, which may be the first time he's heard. Mm-hmm. What is everything that's happening there? Like, again, on that clip I did, everyone's like, that list is it. It's the doctor's appointment. It's the recital. It's the rip pants. It's someone sick, all of that.
Yep.
That can also be overwhelming of him being like, well, where do I start? So part of me almost, it's like a very, very, very specific ask of, can you please pack the kids' school lunches every day?
Yeah.
Like, very specific. I'm giving the guidelines of, I typically, again, usually what I like to do is a protein, a carb, and a vegetable. We're not allowed to have peanuts. If they can have a packed lunch and some water, and however you're going to do that, I don't, like, maybe you do like a different type of, like, uncrustable deli meat, whatever, as long as it's done. Yeah. But if you can be responsible for the kids' lunches every day, that's one thing off. Or like making it like tangible.
A direct, calm ask is a great place to start. I think that like the step towards intermediate is doing something like fair play, where you look at, okay, what am I already doing? What cards am I already kind of owning? Mm-hmm. And what can we definitively say, I'm doing this, you're mm-hmm. doing this, mm-hmm. But yeah, the small request is a great place to start.
Haven, what's the best part about a fight?
Winning.
Winning?
No, I'm kidding. You don't really win in marital fights.
You can win. I think when you come together in the right way, maybe what you thought was winning isn't winning at all.
I think I know your answer to what your favorite thing about a fight is.
Make up sex afterward?
Okay, maybe I didn't. Anyways, we have created a course called How to Fight Better. It's under our umbrella of Pillow Talk, which is about just conversations that you can have with your spouse. We brought in our actual marriage counselor of 12 years, Dr. Jonathan Cood, to help us and explain the tools that he's been teaching us that have helped us have what we feel like is a really thriving, enjoyable marriage, and one that we're proud of. And so we were like, how can we share these experiences, but also the professional person who taught us how to do this with the world? So you can go to joinpillowtalk.com right now to get how to fight better. Okay, back to the episode. I want to read a DM I got from a dad sharing about his perspective of the male mental load. I don't doubt that many women share the majority of the mental load. I also wonder how much mental load that men bear that women are unaware of. What about the mental load that we carry as the financial leader? The stress of wondering if we'll be able to afford all the bills this month. Why aren't I making enough? How can I make more? How can I help my wife more? On top of taking care of the house, fixing everything that needs to be fixed, mowing the lawn, remembering to take out the trash, cleaning the kitchen, taking care of the cars. I feel like we both have a large mental load to carry. Men don't always voice it though. Great convo and can't wait to hear the episode on this. Thank you.
Yeah, I love that. I have some responses. Okay, so yes, we have things that we carry that the other partner may not carry. I think there's also an expectation among men that we handle our own stuff and we handle our own problems. Like that mental load that you've just described, I feel a lot of that pressure on myself as well. My default state is not Lauren should be helping me with this. It's I should be figuring it out. I should be handling it and I should be doing it better. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a different posture than a lot of women have. They get frustrated, especially when there are kids involved, that there's a size of a mental load that's putting a pressure down on them and their husband's not helping. Mm-hmm. I don't have that thought about Lauren. Mm-hmm. So it's a different place to start. Mm-hmm. But I do think about the load that husbands carry when Lauren chooses to communicate to me in a frustrating way that I'm not supporting her. Because mm-hmm. where my brain goes first is, no, I am. I just don't pull you in to all the areas where I'm stressed. And I'm not saying I should hold on to those things, but you know, for those of us fathers who are bringing in more of the financial support to the family, it can be frustrating knowing how much work you put in to do that, to hear you're not supporting me at home. But what if the message of you're not supporting me at home is delivered differently, and it's, hey, I'm drowning and I need help. That's different than, hey, you're not doing this. Mm-hmm. You're not helping us and you're not supporting us. Mm-hmm. So the way that that's delivered to the husband, kind of for me, like that's what makes me think about, well, look over here. Like I am actually trying, you know, if you're attacking me, I choose to defend myself. Mm-hmm. But if you're asking for support, I want to throw you a life vest.
Mm-hmm. What would that look like of like the quintessential traditional husband is carrying like the financial piece? Do they let them in and say, oh, I just worked like a 10-hour day and I got like chewed out by my boss and I have a deadline and I'm still trying to come home for dinner and help with this? Like, is there a way where you're not itemizing it, but also letting her into that internal world that maybe women are more externally processing and men are more taking it internal?
Yeah. I mean, I think like being comfortable with sharing your burden includes sharing your own, you know, like if you're helping to carry the burden of the mental load of taking care of kids, you should also be willing to let your wife help you and your partner help you with what you're carrying as well. So like, loosen the chains around your Fort Knox wall a little bit, like, you know, break down and let your partner hear what's frustrating you. But to your point about itemizing it, I think it's like my constant pursuit isn't how to lower my own burden, it's how to lower my partner's. And I don't necessarily expect the same thing from Lauren, but that's what I expect from myself as a dad. So like she takes care of them during the day when I'm working. As soon as I'm off or as soon as I'm able to give some time, I go down, I work at home, right? I go down, take the kids, like hang out with them, do whatever else I can to remove any obstacle or any issue that she may be having. Because I know how hard it is to be with them that long. Even though you love your kids, it's hard to take care of them for that long, right? But I could choose, even with a stressful day, to not even go downstairs quickly or go downstairs and just kind of sit and like do the fun things, but not clean the kitchen or pick up toys a little bit, or, you know, like I could choose to be a passive parent in that moment, but that doesn't support my partner. And it doesn't balance out the load that she's been carrying that day. So, yes, there are stressful parts of carrying different pieces of the family load, but that doesn't absolve you from helping to alleviate your partners.
Yeah, so it's interesting of even hearing this because I'm feeling internally so mixed. Because one, I want to empathize and be like, hey, I'm glad he's voicing this. Like, that's true. Like, that's a real thing that you're carrying, and that's something that's probably stressing you out. And it's a lot to bring in of there's not just like, people just on the other side, men being like, whatever, like totally like delulu about it. Mm-hmm. Our scenario is different. Like Aaron and I, we both work. I do happen to make more than him and have a little bit more demanding. And so part of me is like, and I'm not alleviated at all from what's the mental load, that just happens to be our scenario. But I would never be like, oh, I make more, so you better step up more because I make more. Like that to me feels kind of like, maybe that's a gender thing. Like that part's kind of interesting. Most of the things he listed, I'm like, I'm kind of responsible for that. And the kid part. So I guess my perspective of when it's that, it's like my work is my work stuff. Even his work is his work stuff. We both live in a house. We both decided to have children. Yeah. Like that's the part of let's make sure this is like working in the internal stuff too. Like I want to give them the best. So part of me is also like, it's a different experience of working is not what we're talking about, the mental load here. The mental load is the shared experience of the home. It's we've both decided to have kids. We both are eating off of plates and needing to things in the dishes. Like that to me is actually separated from who makes more and who's working or not, personally.
Yeah, I mean, how much money you bring into the family is in no way a bargaining chip or a way to defend yourself for me at all. Well, what I was I know you weren't saying that towards me, but what I was responding to is like, yeah, that may represent a larger working burden for you, but it doesn't mean you're worth more or less because you bring in more or less, right?
Yeah, and it is the working burden because I even had to reframe how I'm talking to women of instead of like, oh, do you work? It's do you work outside the home? Because either you work outside the home and you're paid for it, or you're working inside the home and you're not, but it's work. Yeah. Like it's work whether you're inside, whether you're outside.
Can I clarify something you've already said?
Go ahead.
So you mentioned like the burden of one parent, the burden of another parent. I prefer to consider the mental load as the load that the entire family carries, and how you distribute it is the important part. It's not that Lauren has a load or I have a load, it's we as a family carry a burden. We need to equally distribute it.
It's actually kind of interesting you mentioned that because Aaron and I were talking about this today of like, we heard of like, what are things that your kids are developmentally able to do? AKA put the fork from the dishwasher into the drawer. What's something that they're not yet? And they're like, they should be doing everything they developmentally can do, and they should be doing the stuff they technically can't yet. And we thought that was fascinating because we were just kind of assigning based on what their capabilities are. Mm-hmm. But we also we word them as family contributions. It's not a chore. It's not something like this is the way that you contribute to our family is, you put when you're done eating at a table, you put your bowl, plate, whatever, fork in the sink. Mm-hmm. Like that's your family contribution. It's not my job to put away the food that you ate and to put it in the sink and everything. Like that's something they can developmentally do. But you're right, the mental load as they grow, kids are able to now to train them takes double the work, double the time, double the headache. But eventually though it is, I think, helping our kids, and it's a disservice to not have them because then they're used to everyone taking their plates, everyone putting the dishes away. And then they don't model that when they're grown-ups because everyone did it for them when they were little because, it would be too much time to train them. It would be tough. I'm like, I want to care about my kids' future roommates. I want to care about their future spouses. We're like, of course you know how to make a dinner. Of course you put your, stuff away after you don't leave that. Like that to me is like, yeah, it's maybe exhausting for me now, but this is better for them in the long run.
Yeah, I've heard somebody call that the spilled milk theory a little bit. Like if you never let your kid learn how to pour milk into a glass, they'll never learn it. Mm-hmm. They're going to be safer and they're going to spill less milk, but they'll also leave your house not knowing how to pour a glass of milk.
Yes.
So you have to push into those. They can't do it yet, but they're going to teach themselves.
And maybe that's the posture you're going to have to take towards your husband as he's learning the mental load.
Okay, I keep talking about fair play. They can have all the credit. I didn't design this, but this is a book. There's an aspect in the book that talks about you have to let your partner fail when they own a card. not because you want them in pain and you want them to feel the effects of it, but they also need to learn how to own the thing they have committed to learn, in the same way that your kids need to learn how to put their silverware away, put things in the dishwasher, pour a glass of milk. Like, you have to be able to release the burden of that card to that person. And also, you're doing yourself a disservice if you're not letting them own it and own it to failure at some point. You know?
It's so true. It's so true. I think it'd be interesting. I'm going to read off some of the responses I got from people on Instagram when I said I was going to do this topic. And we're not going to have time for all of them because it was scrolling a lot. But I want to kind of share what their viewpoint of carrying the mental load is. A lot of it was preparing meals, including of thinking what's in the fridge or freezer, what needs extra. Kids' sports, appointments, their clothes that fit, shoes, play dates, packing lunch, coats, hats, birthday coming up, nutrition. Let's go on a family vacation. Cool. I'll book it. I'll pack everything and I'll be the first awake. All the appointments and nutrition came up a lot of like, are my kids eating well? And what are all the things we have to book for it? Also, meal prepping and meal planning was big. Every day thinking about what they need physically, spiritually, developmentally. Booking my own appointments, and then also having to bring the 3 kids because they don't have childcare. Oh, this is a tough one. Balance with extended family. Real episode in and of
There's
itself.
a whole set of podcasts for that subject.
Exactly. This one's good. Name of the friends and their parents.
Mm-hmm.
That one's. I remember growing up, I'd tell my dad about someone. He'd be like, "Who's that again?" I'm like, Grace, my best friend for 3 years. Like, what? Like, just the most clueless. And even when I was talking about preparing this episode, I was talking with my mom. I was calling her. She goes, "You know, it would be great." She goes, "Is having your dad on?" Because growing up, my dad was, I love you, Steve Cobble. Just not helpful at all. My mom overextended, did all of it. But now later in life with my kids, he's very helpful. He's watching the courses. He's using the language. He's having healthy boundaries. He cares about their nutrition. He cares about their, like, he's the involved parent that I didn't have growing up, but my kids are having as a grandparent. And I'm like, what an interesting arc of, like, you started as the clueless dad and now you're the very involved, caring grandparent. Like, that part's kind of crazy to me too, is like, now he literally will know, we had Isley's best friend Lennox over the other night, and he was like, "Hey, don't forget to send us pictures of Lennox. Like, how was their play date?" Like, it's so like 180 that it also makes me very happy to be like, there's opportunity of growth and change. Like, where you start doesn't have to be where you end. Whether you start and then 3.5 years later you're better, or whether you start and 33 years later you learn better. Like, to me, it's like, oh my gosh, it's such a picture that people can grow and change anytime they choose or want to.
Yeah, I heard on a separate podcast this morning, actually, that I'm not a grandparent yet, but that your grandchildren will teach you how you should have loved your children.
Oh,
Yeah, it hurts to hear. But it's kind of what you just said, right? Like, if you continue to stay curious as a parent, you will and should become better at it and become more supportive. So it makes sense that you would show up as a different and better parent for grandkids than you would for your own.
I love that.
It's a bit heartbreaking too, right?
Yeah. Let's not linger on that one. Who needs a special outfit for a certain day? Who likes which food brands? Best park to play in for easy in and out. Kids grooming. Oh my gosh, cutting their nails. I can't do it. It creeps me out. Aaron is the nail guy. Like, if we had a card for trimming nails, it would be that. It just, I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like I don't get it close enough because I don't want to hurt them. And then we just have to cut nails all the time. Removal of old stuff. Everything for the birthday. Where everything is. Things to get ready for Easter baskets. Has it been 6 months since the last dentist appointment? Rushing bedtime routines because you have to pack lunches and clean up the house. A lot of it on kids' clothes. Someone just wrote this question.
Yeah. Just having to think about it at all.
Exactly. Having to think about it at all. Constant question of, am I doing enough as a wife, mom, homemaker?
So I think that comes from societal pressure, because I don't know of any dad, great partner or not, who's accusing their wife of not being a great mom. You know, like I'm sure they are out there, but the ones that are trying aren't doing that. So like, where's that pressure coming from? It's not coming from me. I know Lauren's had those thoughts too of like, am I doing enough? Am I being a good enough mom?
Yeah, I mean, I totally have those, and I like still feel pretty confident in my motherhood. But I thought about that the other day of like the kids learning like scripture. I'm like, I don't know how many, if you have any verses memorized or if we're reading enough of it, or even I was telling you that I went to a nutritionist and I have some issues with wheat, and so I'm like, okay, well, we already have Ezekiel bread in the house, so that's what I've been eating. But Isley went over to a friend's house, and they made her a peanut butter and jelly, and she was like, this is the best thing I've ever had. Can you send my mom a picture? And they sent me a picture, and it was like thick white bread, Jiffy peanut butter, all this stuff. And she was like, Mom, did you know that these ingredients are here? Like, this is...
Did you know these existed?
Yeah, she was like, this is the best. Can you please tell my mom, send a picture? And she kept talking about it. And when I was bringing that up, I bring this full circle. I was bringing it to the nutritionist talking about Ezekiel bread. He's like, well, you know what you should do? Because he was a person of faith. He was like, what you should do is like tell her, read the story about like how the ingredients, these are like God said these ingredients and he brought them to it, and then they put it in a big vessel and it fed them and it was nourishing. And that other bread, people took out everything that was good for it, and it's not healthy for your body, and it can give you a tummy ache. And like the way that he crafted that story to me made me think, oh my gosh, I'm not doing enough.
Yeah,
I literally was like, and me, the person who's giving my child Ezekiel bread and organic almond butter is still being like, I'm not doing enough because I'm not telling her why we use the bread. Like, and I think it's beautiful, and I want to tell them that story, and it was a great idea. But the thought was not, oh, that's a great idea. It was, yeah, I never thought of it. Does she even know who Ezekiel is? Does she know why we use this bread? Because it's healthy? Like, all of those thoughts come in where I'm like, not doing enough.
Yeah. Lauren is plagued by these, and I think she's an incredible mother.
I
She's
would
plagued
like
by
her
them.
to be my mother.
Yeah, you did say that. Yeah, what I have to constantly say to her, because she has some of those mental battles as well, where she feels like she's a bad mom at times. I tell her, you know, bad moms don't think about being better moms, and you consistently think about how to be a better mom. You know, so like you can see those situations and you can think, oh, I'm curious about it. I want to add that to my arsenal. Like I'm excited about it, or your brain can snap to, oh my gosh, I'm not doing that. I'm the worst.
Yeah.
Which that happens to guys too. Like I see dads that are like swinging the golf club with their kid when they're like 1.5, or like, you know, like teaching their kid how to read or write or whatever super, super early. Like we have those moments too. But, for me, it doesn't make me snap to I'm the worst father. It's more like jealousy that they're doing it and I'm not. So I get excited about like adding it into my toolkit.
Totally. That was a good call out on that. The rest is basically like thinking and caring about the experience everyone's having, or gaps that need to be filled, making sure we have a going calendar and stay on top of everything. So it's like, I mean, I'm just even scrolling on here. There's just a lot that's happening there. And so what would you say? Like, I know we already talked about, okay, what's the very, very bare minimum? What's an intermediate? I would say that you are a very, very advanced dad. So now talk to the elite out there. Like, what's a way to like 1% up if you're actually already pretty good at this?
Oh man, that's a tough question. I would say like continue to have a relentless pursuit of supporting your partner and carrying the same family burden. Like your wife is not the family manager. You guys have a family that you both need to manage. So don't treat her as an assistant. Don't be apathetic. Like aggressively be curious and march forward as a family, and expect of yourself that the last thing your partner's going to think is that you're not there trying with her. You know?
I love that.
Like one of the reasons I think that it feels weird to receive that compliment, A, it's humbling, but B, like, I don't think that I am the best at it. You know, I think I'm better than I was. And I always want to continue to get better. I'm a crier.
I don't know. I think you're pretty great, Nick. I mean, I think I've said it like a million times. I love getting to watch both you and Lauren parent, because it's not like one's amazing and the other one's just there. Like that's what's cool to me, is like it's like when two elite athletes get married. you're like, oh my gosh, they're both athletic. That's kind of crazy. Usually it's like one and a tech nerd or something. Like, so to see two people that I would view, and maybe it is because you were teachable and willing to change and adjust and ask and, you know, communicate. And you did have a great person teaching you. Lauren is one of the smartest people I've ever met. Like, she is so well researched. She's so kind. But I do think there is this element of like, if you want it, it's there. Like, if you want to learn how to do this, if you want to offer, is there, even if it's maybe not something that you started parenthood with.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, like, something I think that we've learned is that it's not one-sided. Like, she did teach me a lot about what she researched first, but I've also taught her things about how I think we should parent that she's adopted, right? And if I wasn't curious and she didn't let down her wall of assuming I wasn't trying, we wouldn't have been able to figure those things out. So, like, it may feel at the beginning like wife's teacher, you know, based on doing more research, and husband is the student, but push past that. Like, you both should be able to bring great things to the table and learn from each other.
I would agree. And my answer even to like the 1% better is like, when one of you has a lot going on, the other one saying, hey, I know that's your card. Like, I can do it. Like, that to me is such a relief of like, I'm ready to show up. I'm ready to carry my weight. But anytime Aaron's like, man, you have a lot going on. Like, let me do this. It's like, it is a weight off my back. It makes me feel so seen and so taken care of. And it makes me more inclined to do that with him too, because I'm not like carrying this, oh man, I've done this whole thing. It's, I know how relieving it is to offer. So that's one of the things we were talking about coming into this episode too, of like, sometimes there's a black and white, hard and fast. Like, when I go out of town, I don't have to tell my husband anything. He's fine. I think it's terrible if I do, but that feels really binary, where I'm like, you know, I don't have to. I could get hit by a bus and Aaron would know what to do with the kids. But like, I ask him, I say, what would help you before I leave? Is it having the house completely clean so you have a good foundation? Is it having the laundry done? Would you like me to help with groceries? Or like, what's one way that's going to make this easier for you when I'm gone, and vice versa? When he goes, he's like, hey, would it be helpful if I meal prep? Would you prefer if I take the kids for a couple hours so you at least have one day alone before I'm gone? Like, it is a push-pull. It isn't as like, either you know everything or you don't. Like, it's a partnership, and it's like you said, of like the family helping carry the mental load. Yeah.
I mean, I'm thinking of like the beginner, intermediate, advanced a little bit here, like to use our categories. Beginner is other parent doesn't know how to do it when you're gone, right? Mm-hmm. I would say intermediate is you don't have to coach them up. They're not the babysitter. You can leave, not help, and they'll be completely fine. Mm-hmm. Advanced is, to your point, you trust your partner so much that you're choosing to use your time to help alleviate the burden of you being gone without assuming they can't do it without you. Mm-hmm. You know, like, to your point, Lauren is choosing to do extra meal prep or like get an activity together or something because she knows I'm going to watch them over a weekend, mm-hmm. you know? And I don't expect that of her. Like, I'm not the babysitter either, right? If I'm there to take care of them, you know, she shouldn't have to do more, but she's choosing to because she can trust me. And I expect the same thing from myself when she's watching them when I'm gone.
And almost as a parting thought, I want to add that, like, even if you're sharing the mental load, it's still heavy.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's still a lot. Yeah. Even when you have an involved partner, even if you have, like, not, like, very challenging kids at that stage, like, it's hard, and it feels hard because it is hard. And so that's another piece too, is like, even if you have someone helping, like, this is a challenging thing. This is struggle. This is some things will unexpectedly come up, like, oh my gosh, now this kid's going through this health thing, and how are we going to rearrange and take him to the doctor twice a week? Or like, other elements of life come in, and it reshuffles the deck of what the responsibilities are too. And so also, I don't want to say like, oh, and once you find the perfect formula, it's so clear and it's so even. Like, it's ebbing and flowing a lot, and a lot of it is communication. One way of carrying the mental load may not work in 2 years, and it has to be like, hey, we got to adjust, or we got to talk, because no matter who and how many, even if you have like the ideal scenario, I feel that way a lot, where I'm like, man, I have a really great husband, and I really do feel like these elements that could otherwise be so tricky, I'm so grateful, and it's still really freaking hard. Mm-hmm. Like, it's still long days. It's still a kid pooping in bed in the middle of the night. and you have to go in at 2 a.m. and move their hoarder style of stuffies, see what got poop on it, wash them off in a bathtub. I'm speaking from experience 2 nights ago. I don't know.
I thought you were describing something that we've had to do because that was 3 weeks ago for us.
Okay, yeah, it was 2 nights, and Aaron was out of town, and I was like, oh, awesome. Okay, great. Then you're washing under your nails. Like, that stuff is gonna happen. But if you have a good baseline of the day-to-day, the ad hoc stuff doesn't throw you as much, but it doesn't mean it's gone.
Yeah. To me, the goal is like having a trustworthy partner that will share the hard things with you. The goal is not, with the right partner and one that's sharing the mental load with me, to your point, it's all going to get easier. It's not. It's a heavy, heavy load.
Totally. And we're talking a lot about like the women and men because that's like our marriages, that's our experience. But also I know there's different partnerships, or maybe even like a single parent is listening to this and being like, oh my gosh, like all of that's on there. Like there's a lot that can go into us. We're just speaking from our own personal experience on there, where even with those parameters, it can still be a lot, but it is a lot less challenging than if you didn't have someone to do it with.
Yeah, this is probably a topic for another episode, but like I include a lot of our close friends in sharing our family burden. And similarly to how Lauren had to coach me on what the mental burden actually was, a lot of my friends don't have kids yet, with the exception of you guys and other couples we know that do. But when you tell them and let them into how difficult your world is a little bit, if they're friends that actually love you, they will be excited about stepping in to help. You know, it took me a long time to ask people to come babysit that didn't have kids, even though I fully trusted they could and our kids loved them, because I didn't want to burden them with what we were dealing with. And they were sitting so patiently waiting, ready to help us and so excited to do so. All I had to do was ask.
I think that's so true. I love that. And there is an aspect of community that's important. And I do wonder if in our westernized world, us not having the tribe around us, the different multi-generational, like that element, like we are maybe feeling the mental load more than maybe not generations like, 80s and 60s, but like maybe more than like a couple hundred years ago where it was aunties and uncles. It was group. You did trust where they were. Like, I do think that maybe the way that we're isolated and individuated is adding to this weight.
No offense, America, but even today, if you jump an ocean, families will be treated better. Yeah. That's my opinion.
It's true.
Yeah.
Not only family, I mean, we could get into all this. The nutrition's better. The leave is better. The time of day, the working hours. Like, there is something about westernized culture that maybe we weren't made to do it at this pace by ourselves. And we're running into issues because it's not the intention of community.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, sad one to end on.
I'm sorry. I'm having to edit myself because I'm like, not edit, but restrict. Like, that's a big subject. I would love to talk about that more.
It is, but thank you for being here. I guess I want to end on one question to you of how are you teaching your children how to do this, like for generations past? So like Cypress, particularly Cypress, is not going to go into a partnership later being like, I have no clue, How is the way that like he's not going to sit on a couch and be like, I didn't know how. He's going to be like, oh, I totally saw my dad, or my dad made me do this, which taught me that.
Yeah. I mean, to me, it starts before kids. Like I am trying to train him and Olive, but I'm trying to train him to be a servant of those around him, especially those he's in a deep partnership with. So when he gets married and gets into a serious relationship and gets married, I expect him to constantly be serving the person he's chosen to do life with. And that, of course, carries over into being a parent. He should be tiring himself out to serve his partner, not because it's half and half and, any other reason. It's because he's there to serve her. That's what I expect of him.
I love that. That'll be great. Any parting thoughts? Anything to say before we go, Nick?
Husbands do better. I always like to say that. But give us some grace and assume virtuous intent. Pull us in, and you may be surprised how much we actually do care and want to participate.
And I'll speak to the wife part of it of, again, like let them fail, let them spill the milk, let them do it in their own way. Be grateful that they're attempting to get it done and know that it'll probably be different than how you would do it. Like, just assume that it's going to be different. And like, that's really not the point. It's the point is that it's getting done. They're attempting, and celebrate that as a baby step too.
Yeah, it's good. Thank you.
Thanks for having me. Cheers on our microphones.
Clink.
Thank you guys for listening. I feel like this was an expanded version of just that tiny clip of mental load of what it looks like. And I hope it was helpful. I don't know if you're listening and what stage of it you're in, whether you do have an involved partner, whether you don't have a partner, whether you don't even have kids and this is all new information. Actually, that's what I would probably want to close on, is if you don't have kids and you're not married, these are crucial conversations to have in advance. Crucial. I can't explain it enough, of just going on a date and being like, hey, how did you see your parents' involvement growing up? What did they do? What are your expectations of yourself? How do you see it in a partnership? Like when a mom comes home with a baby, what do you think the dad should do? Like these are so important to unearth and realize the expectations in advance. Otherwise, it's just so tricky, and maybe when you're in it, it's already a little bit too late. And so that actually is a good segue of my husband and I, we created a relational e-course called Pillow Talk. We did it with our therapist of 13 years, Dr. Jonathan Cood, and the first course we did is How to Fight Better. And the conflict that comes up from the mental load is pretty frequent. And so Nick talked a lot about like communication and the back and forth, but like it can easily get heated. So if you don't have healthy conflict style, it can be really difficult to navigate that in a way that ends with you guys coming on common ground versus being opposing enemies. And so I recommend it. You want to say something, Nick?
I was just going to say we've taken it. It's great. Buy it. It's awesome.
Thank you, Nick.
Yeah,
Nick and Lauren did go through it. They sent me videos in their car. Mm-hmm. But I'd say it also just helps of like, what's our conflict style before we go into this? So then when we are going to have some challenging conversations, what's a way that we can do it in a way that brings us closer versus pushing us further apart? So join pillowtalk.com, How to Fight Better. Otherwise, I'll see you on the next episode.